Let's be honest, replacing Neil Peart is almost impossible. This is a man widely considered one of the greatest rock drummers of all time. Someone who didn't just keep time, but turned drumming into storytelling. Rush wasn't just a band, it was a machine of precision, and Peart was the engine behind it. His style was complex, technical, and almost mathematical, filled with odd time signatures, massive drum kits, and mind-blowing solos. So when fans ask who could replace him, what they're really asking is who has the skill, creativity, endurance, and mindset to even come close. Now, let's get one thing clear. We are not talking about Anika Nilles here. She's already in the conversation, and honestly, that's too easy. Instead, we're going deeper. We're looking at drummers who have mastered complex rhythms, built a reputation in progressive or technical rock, and most importantly, have that Peart-like brain behind the kit. Because being flashy isn't enough. Neil Peart wasn't just fast, he was intentional. Every hit meant something. And in this video, I'm going to show you 5 drummers who could realistically step into that impossible role, or at least get dangerously close. Some of these names will make perfect sense, others, they might shock you. Let's start with a drummer who many fans already consider the closest thing to Neil Peart alive. If there's one name that keeps coming up whenever people talk about replacing Neil Peart, it's Mike Portnoy. Now this isn't random hype. Portnoy built his legacy with Dream Theater, a band known for insanely complex compositions, shifting time signatures, and long, structured songs. Sound familiar? Just like Peart, Portnoy doesn't just play drums, he composes with them. He's known for precision in odd time signatures, deep musical memory. He can recall entire set lists and structures, massive, evolving drum kits, and storytelling through rhythm. In fact, Portnoy has openly cited Peart as one of his biggest influences. And you can hear it, not as imitation, but as evolution. But here's the real reason fans take him seriously. He has the discipline and stamina to handle a Rush-style performance. We're talking about songs that are not just physically demanding, but mentally exhausting. Still, there's one debate. Portnoy leans more into progressive metal aggression, while Peart had a more controlled, almost orchestral feel. That difference matters. So while Mike Portnoy might be the closest technical match, the question becomes, is close enough when you're replacing a legend? Up next, a drummer who blends power with precision in a completely different way. If Mike Portnoy is the closest technical match, then Carey is the closest thing to a modern evolution of Neil Peart. As the drummer for Tool, Carey operates in a completely different sonic space, but the DNA is similar. His drumming is built on complex time signatures, layered rhythms, and almost scientific precision. We're talking about a guy who incorporates polyrhythms and sacred geometry concepts, electronic pads mixed with acoustic drums, long, hypnotic song structures, and a level of independence between limbs that feels almost unreal. Just like Peart, Carey doesn't just play beats, he builds systems. Listen closely to Tool's music, and you'll notice something. The drums don't follow the band often follows him. That's a very Peart-like trait. But here's where things get interesting. Carey brings a heavier, darker tone. His style is more tribal, more aggressive, and sometimes less clean than Peart's structured elegance. Where Peart was precise and calculated, Carey can feel almost cosmic and unpredictable. So could he replace Neil Peart? Technically, yes. Stylistically, that's where fans might be divided. Coming up next, a drummer who mixes jazz, fusion, and pure intelligence in a way that might surprise you. Now here's where things take a different turn. Because if you really understood Neil Peart, you'd know his playing wasn't just about rock. It was deeply influenced by jazz, swing, and big band phrasing. And that's exactly why Guiliana deserves a serious spot on this list. Guiliana isn't your typical rock powerhouse. Instead, he brings something even more dangerous: musical intelligence. He's worked across genres, from jazz to electronic music, and even collaborated with David Bowie on the album Black Star. That alone tells you the level he operates on. What makes him special? His phrasing feels like a conversation, not just rhythm. He blends electronic and acoustic textures effortlessly. His timing is elastic, yet always controlled. And most importantly, he plays with intention, just like Peart. But here's the twist. Guiliana isn't flashy in the traditional sense. He's not going to overwhelm you with giant fills or massive solos. Instead, he pulls you in with subtle complexity and emotional depth. That's a very Peart-like philosophy, serving the music first. Still, there's a question. Could a jazz-influenced, experimental drummer truly step into a band like Rush without changing its identity? Some fans would say yes. Others, not so much. Next, we're bringing in a drummer who combines technical skill with raw rock energy and has already proven himself on massive stages. Now let's replace raw rock energy with something even more dangerous, precision at the highest level. Meet Thomas Lang. If you've ever wondered what it looks like when drumming becomes pure science, Thomas Lang is your answer. This is a drummer known globally for pushing human limits behind the kit. We're talking about someone who can play completely different rhythms with each limb at the same time, without losing control. And that's exactly why he belongs in a conversation about replacing Neil Peart. Because just like Peart, Lang doesn't rely on vibes. He relies on discipline, structure, and total control. He's built his reputation through extreme limb independence, flawless timing and accuracy, advanced footwork that few drummers can match, and the ability to execute long, demanding pieces without breaking. But here's what really matters. Rush songs are not just difficult, they are mentally exhausting. You're constantly switching time signatures, dynamics, and patterns. Thomas Lang thrives in that environment. Now, here's the debate. Lang isn't known for fronting a massive band like Rush. He doesn't bring that stadium charisma or emotional storytelling that Peart had. But if the question is, who can physically and mentally handle the complexity of a full Rush set, then Thomas Lang might be one of the most qualified humans alive. Next, we step into the future with a younger drummer who might take all of this to another level. Now this is where things get bold. Because replacing Neil Peart might not come from his generation at all. It might come from the next one. Enter Matt Garstka. As the drummer for Animals as Leaders, Garstka is operating at a level that honestly feels inhuman at times. We're talking about insane limb independence, precision timing at extreme tempos, complex polyrhythms layered on top of each other, and total control over dynamics. Just like Peart, Garstka treats the drum kit like a full musical instrument, not just something that keeps time. But here's what really sets him apart. He's part of a new generation that grew up studying drummers like Peart, Portnoy, and Carey. That means he's not just influenced, he's built from their evolution. Still, there's a challenge. Garstka's style leans heavily into modern progressive metal, which can feel more mechanical and less narrative than Peart's storytelling approach. So the big question is, could he adapt his style to fit Rush's identity without losing what makes him unique? If he can, he might be one of the most dangerous candidates on this list. And now, it's time for the final pick, the one that might divide fans the most. Now this final pick before the conclusion might be the most controversial of them all. Because on paper, he doesn't scream Rush replacement. But if you look deeper, it starts to make sense. Meet Gavin Harrison. Best known for his work with Porcupine Tree and King Crimson, Harrison is one of the most respected drummers in progressive music. But here's what makes him different. He's not about flash. He's about control. Harrison is famous for unbelievable precision and timing, deep understanding of rhythm displacement, subtle complexity that doesn't overpower the music, and a calm, almost surgical approach behind the kit. Sound familiar? That's because it echoes a huge part of what made Neil Peart so special. Peart wasn't always about speed, he was about placement. Every note had purpose, and Gavin Harrison lives in that same philosophy. But here's why fans might argue. He's more reserved, less explosive, less theatrical, and replacing Peart isn't just about skill, it's about presence. So the question becomes, do you choose a drummer who feels like Peart, or one who can recreate the spectacle? In the final batch, we're answering that question and revealing what truly matters when replacing a legend. So here's the truth. You don't replace Neil Peart. You reinterpret what he built. Every drummer on this list, Mike Portnoy, Danny Carey, Mark Guiliana, Taylor Hawkins, Matt Garstka, and Gavin Harrison, brings something powerful to the table. But none of them are Peart. And that's the point. Because what made him special wasn't just technique. It wasn't just speed or precision, or even those legendary drum solos. It was the way he thought. He approached drumming like a writer, like a composer, like someone telling a story with every hit. That's why his work with Rush still feels timeless today. So if Rush were ever to return with another drummer, the real question wouldn't be who can replace Neil Peart. It would be who understands the responsibility of continuing his legacy without trying to copy it. Because fans don't just want skill, they want respect. They want someone who knows when to push and when to hold back. And most importantly, someone who understands that behind every note Peart played, there was meaning. And maybe that's something no one can truly replace. So after everything we've broken down, here's the reality most fans don't want to admit. You don't replace Neil Peart. You respect him. Because what he did with Rush wasn't just drumming, it was architecture. Every fill, every transition, every pattern was carefully designed. He didn't just play music, he built it. And that's why this conversation is so difficult. Guys like Mike Portnoy and Danny Carey bring the complexity. Gavin Harrison brings the control and precision. Matt Garstka represents the future. Mark Guiliana brings the musical intelligence. And Thomas Lang brings the raw, almost superhuman technique. But none of them bring him. And maybe that's the point. Because the real question was never who can replace Neil Peart. It was always who can honor what he created without trying to copy it. And that's a different level of responsibility. So if Rush ever came back with a new drummer, it wouldn't be about finding the closest clone. It would be about finding someone who understands that behind every note Peart played, there was intention, discipline, and meaning. And maybe that's something no one can truly recreate.